Hello there. See, you've joined me again this morning. Well, not a lot different from your last visit, but been working on this log spirit, as you know, and some of you very kindly, when I posted your last visit, said please could they see some more. I've dug out a much abused, I bought it second hand in a car boot sale, and as you can see it's a little V chisel that's really been sharpened and sharpened and sharpened. This is a full-sized one, and as you can see there's quite a difference, but it works and I keep it honed up, and it's a very useful tool for, as I say, just putting those stop cuts around relief carving, just to stop you charging in. The good thing about it is that it's sharp on all the edges and a little tiny gouge in the middle. As I'm putting a little bit of depth and curl into these leaves, I'm starting what I like to call the carver's sway. On the rare occasions when I do try and help people carve, one of the things that I try and encourage them to do is not to stand too rigid against their work, and to move their whole body, not just their hands, in guiding the chisel. And it helps to create a flow. Well, I like to think it does. And it's so easy to get very, very rigid on a piece of work. I think if you leave just a little bit of wood when you're shaping, if it's not quite right, you enter. Now this piece is really awkward against the grain, so we're having to try not to rough it out. Keep the chisel at just a little bit steeper angle to bite in. And this chisel is very sharp. Just spent 10 minutes dropping him off camera, trying to. Now I've made these ridges here which I'll blend in when I turn the leaf over a little bit. Here's a if you folks pick up nothing else from this little section, keeping the chisel stropped is an absolute essential. And I say strop rather than sharpen because it's very, well, unless you abuse your chisel, you know, you're forcing it against really hard wood, you're unlikely to actually damage it. I mean, this is very good steel. These are Swiss, I can never pronounce their name, but it's Fissel, or it begins with a P. But they do hold an edge. But they constantly need attention. Now here's a knot which I decided to try and leave, but if your chisel is sharp and you're steady with the pressure, you can and one of the against really hardwood, like a knot in hardwood, I don't know if the camera picks it up, but that is actually shiny, and that's an indication that your chisel is pretty sharp. You see, here is a great example of not overworking just one area. When we were looking at it yesterday, I spent some time on this side of the face, around the eye and the socket, and I was tempted to, you know, really create the eyebrow line. But as you can see, you then have to work it into what's going on the forehead. And if you'd already reduced this, you know, from say that height, you run into trouble when you start to add detail. Now I'm pretty sure the microphone will pick up this. This is just suddenly I've hit a much drier piece, and it makes a very different sound when you're cutting the wood back. It sort of sounds scratchy. I might even treat myself to a cup of coffee. Been stropping away a little bit on this. And then the final. Okay, well, let's see. This is straight off, and we're cutting into a very similar piece of wood, and I think you can both see and hear how it's just gliding into the wood rather than chipping it out, I suppose. Yes. And it's leaving a nice clean gouge. And I am able to take off just a little bit more wood. At a time. Having set the scene up here and started to put some small hints of detail, ready for a bit more action later, it's time now to try and blend this side. We worked on this eye, and so today I'm just going to carry on just tidying up more than detailing, just blending the two. This eyeball is a little bit large compared to the other one, which, you know, nature, so maybe we just have to work on him a little bit, just to move some wood around a little bit. Nothing radical, just this is where these small skews really come into their own, particularly with reshaping. And also quite useful for making some stab depth cuts when you want to give depth to the side of an eye, which isn't actually that large. Now here I want to put a little bit of depth into the corner of the eye, so it's a stab in and then take out a little triangle of wood. Which creates a depth. The grain is running around this way, so I'm constantly tempted to cut across it, which is not the best. round that off a little bit first, because it's still a bit large compared to the other one. So more in keeping. I get more questions about carving eyes than most questions, and really the only advice I can say is practice and look at the excellent YouTubes that are out there on carving eyes and follow their advice. But I think the major criteria is just to get some wood, scruffy bit of pine or anything. He says that about pine. Pine is a very nice wood, but it's often just a question of getting out there and practicing and giving yourself, because if you're not really happy with the way an eye looks, it's one of those carvings that'll sit on the shelf and you'll look at it and you'll think, oh, why did I do that? And in my case, my house is full of them. Right, well that's pretty balanced. And it won't, I'm not going to fiddle with it any more than that at the moment, because I'm going to, this is catching my eye and somehow or other it's breaking the flow. So let's get his cheeks pretty, not symmetrical, because he is a facial expression and it won't be the same as the other side because he's in a nice big wind blowing this way. Excuse the sniffing. I suppose the pollen is starting to rise now, which of course is for those who suffer with hay fever, which fortunately I don't extensively, although my daughter unfortunately does. Yeah, it's not something some people say, oh, you grow out of it. But unfortunately my daughter didn't. Although she does say it's not as bad as it has been. But I think it's more to do with the amount of pollen that is shed in this time of the year and general atmospheric conditions. Okay, well, I think for a couple of reasons. One is that I need to go and clear my nose a bit, and I've been carving away now for, what is it, nearly 4 hours, so that is these days about my limit. What have we done today? Well, we've cured a little happy accident. We've looked at the benefits of stropping and using sharper tools. We've talked a little bit about some of the different chisels that I've been digging into. And I think the biggest thing I could say today is, if you take away anything from today, it's keep the chisels sharp and strop, rather than think that you've got to go right back to regrinding and things like that. Okay, well, I'm going to press the button. I think it's time to retire the chisels and go and see how my good wife is. Let's see.